Hello and welcome to Ycft. No, we are not doing Friday the 13th Part 2. We are doing The Town That Dreaded Sundown, released in 1976, which also had a hood-wearing killer. I think it's been cited as the inspiration for Jason's mask in Friday the 13th Part 2.
Uh-huh.
The only difference is that has one eye.
Uh-huh.
Warmness.
Every time we do a mask bit,
It's a really warm day.
It's a very warm day.
It's probably can go into the movie. What's the name again? Bud
Davis.
Bud Davis, who plays the Phantom Killer in this movie. He breathes really aggressively into this mask. So you can see it kind of going in, out, in, out. I was practicing trying to do that. It's really hard.
Really hard.
It's really hard to act for a mask. So I just want to give him props straight off the bat.
Excellent breathing work.
Excellent breathing work. Excellent wide eyes. So I'm going to keep this on for a little bit until I start to pass out.
Okay.
And then it can end up being here.
Okay.
I want to try and last longer than... I think I've already lasted longer than I do in the Gilman mask.
I mean, that is borderline claustrophobic.
Yeah. What was the name of the director of this movie?
Charles B. Pierce.
And was it The Legend of Boggy Creek that was his...
That was his... I don't know if it was his first, but it was like the one he was most well known for.
Yeah, that's what gave him the notoriety to get this movie made. It is based off some real-life killings known as the Texarkana Moonlight Killings.
Moonlight Murders.
Moonlight Murders
from 1946.
Yeah, where 5 people were killed and several others injured.
Yeah.
Tragic killings that happened back in the 40s over a span of like 10 weeks, I believe it was. A lot of people did survive, but 5 were tragically killed in pretty gruesome ways. The description was of a tall man wearing a hood, but he was never caught. He's literally, that's why they called him the Phantom Killer. He just disappeared. All of his attacks were on young couples.
Yeah.
Most of them in their cars out on like Lover's Lane, out of the way, apart from his final one, which was in someone's home. Always on the evenings, always on the weekends, which tells me that he had a job, that he was a working man.
Most likely, yeah.
But the scariest thing about these killings at the time was it could literally have been anybody.
Yeah.
There was a couple of suspects that they just couldn't stick it to.
Yeah.
The director actually grew up hearing these stories as a child and it scared him, so he decided to make it into his own movie. So we're very much in the wake of like Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Gritty realism
Of
the 70s.
And it blurs the lines between horror and real life.
Yeah.
With it being so closely based on real life killings.
Yeah. And it's off.
I'd personally never seen this film before we first watched it. I know you hadn't either.
I'd heard of it though.
I'd heard of it. It seems to be one that people are talking about a little bit more. It absolutely belongs as part of like the granddaddies of the modern slasher, but it never really crops up in the conversation that much. As much as I like Leatherface, and obviously we ended the 70s with Michael Myers.
Yeah.
But the influence that this movie clearly had is it's clear, it's obvious.
Yes, very when you watch it in different ways.
But what did you think about it?
Overall, I admire this movie. I can respect the film. It had a very low budget. I think it was like $500,000 or something like that. And it's obviously telling the real life horror of a real life murderer shot a little bit anyway in the actual place where these murders happened. A little portion of this movie was shot in Texarkana, so I can respect it. In some ways the movie worked for me, in a lot of ways it doesn't, but I can't say that I didn't like the movie because I feel like that would be inaccurate. There are some scenes that really had my attention, but overall all I kept on doing throughout watching it, and it's unfairly, but I just kept on thinking about how other movies have done something similar to this, but have done it so much better.
You want to talk about Zodiac?
I want to talk about Zodiac. I know this is not going to turn into, we're not going to compare it scene by scene, obviously. I would not do that. But Zodiac, David Fincher movie, 2007. I think we've spoken about it briefly on the channel before in another video of ours, weirdly, so it's coming up again in the summer.
Yeah, it was in the Cherry Falls video.
It was in the Cherry Falls video. I just want to bring it up because, yes, there have been many movies based on real-life serial killers, but I think Zodiac is probably the most noteworthy film to compare Town That Dreaded Sundown to, just because in many ways the plot and even just the circumstances are very similar. Both films, you have, first of all, a killer that was never caught, who also Zodiac also targeted young couples for the most part in remote lovers' lanes. Also donned a hood and donned a mask for at least one of the attacks. And both films cover the police procedural element of the investigation, spending a lot of time with the investigators. What I think Zodiac does so much better than Town That Dreaded Sundown is that element specifically. Zodiac gives us 3 characters, primarily 3, that we can lock onto, and as time passes by and there's no new leads and, you know, there's also no new murders and Zodiac is kind of disappearing into the ether, people are forgetting about this guy, we see the frustration and we see the anger within them. We see how Zodiac has affected these 3 men in their lives in different ways, like haunting them almost. We don't get that with Town That Dreaded Sundown, primarily because we don't really have a main character. We kind of oscillate between different points of view, different characters. Ultimately, I think Zodiac makes the whole experience feel a little bit more personal, which Town That Dreaded Sundown just it just simply didn't. And I can totally respect they're 2 different films, 2 different budgets, 2 very differently skilled directors at the helm. So as I say, it is an unfair comparison, and maybe in a lot of ways, but I just kept on thinking how I've seen this movie but done better.
You can compare the killings to Zodiac.
Absolutely.
Isn't it the same number of kills?
Zodiac,
confirmed.
There are 5 confirmed killings with the Zodiac killer, very much similar to the Phantom.
We also found out, same as Jack the Ripper.
Again, 5 confirmed.
Why did they all stop at 5?
That's a much bigger
Psychologists say killers don't stop, but something clearly stopped all these people.
Yeah, and interestingly, again, in the case of Zodiac and the Phantom from Texarkana, the fifth attack is incredibly different to what came before.
Same with Jack the Ripper.
Also, well, similar, but again, you know, just done on a much bloodier, more grisly scale. Yes, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Town That Dreaded Sundown, the fifth attack, he differentiates from his usual MO. It's not a couple in a lover's lane; it's a married couple in a house. In their home,
getting them in their home.
Yeah, so he's changing it up a little bit. He's breaking the pattern. With Zodiac, the 5th attack, instead of the lovers' lanes, it was in a busy street in San Francisco. He kills a cab driver, and there was actually a witness to that attack as well.
Well, that's the unique thing here. By attacking the couple in the house, kills one and leaves a witness.
And he did leave a witness. Yeah,
it's kind of weird how these things line up.
It's very similar, and I don't know if there are theories out there that exist of, you know, Texarkana did it inspire the Zodiac killer. Could it be the same person? I don't know. I don't think it would be the same person, but it is very.
I don't think the timelines work out for that one.
Zodiac would have been old, or significantly older. But it is fascinating from a real life point of view, comparing these killers and these attacks, but also just from a filmmaking perspective. I definitely think Town That Dreaded Sundown inspired Zodiac for sure. But yes, overall, I did like this movie. I just think, well, it was made again fairly recently.
Yeah, it did. We're not really going to touch on that one because we've not watched the 2014. We have got it, so we might do it at some point in the future. And I've heard, from what I've seen of a video we watched by Matt Draper, it actually looks like a pretty decent film because it's more of a sequel to the real life events, and this movie is just a movie in that world.
Yeah,
but doesn't try to identify who the killer was in those original ones.
Yeah.
So I'm interested.
I'm also interested. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just touch on the police procedural part of it. That's actually a bit that I dislike about this movie. The dislike might be a bit harsh. The film kind of has a documentary feel to it without fully going into a documentary because we have a voiceover. We'll see characters maybe like 1 or 2 scenes before so we see them living their everyday life before they get attacked. So we mostly follow the police. We have a Texas Ranger, we have a deputy who are kind of the main characters. But the way the police are presented, because the film does all of only the names have been changed.
To protect
the right.
Yeah.
The incredible story you are about to see is true. Where it happened and how it happened. Only the names have been changed.
The police are uses sort of the comic relief, especially a character called Sparkplug. So I think he was actually played by the director, wasn't he?
Yes. His character on Wikipedia is called Benson.
Yeah, he's got.
But yeah, Charles B. Pierce plays him.
Yeah, he
Comic
has a
relief.
nickname as Sparkplug. Yeah, he's the comic relief. So yeah, he's like fumbling over trying to find keys for the car, drives ridiculously fast to try and impress the Texas Ranger, gets them into accidents, drives them into like bogs and stuff like that. This is
Where did this come from, movie?
When this is a serious situation.
It is a very serious situation.
The police in this movie, I don't know if this is something they tried, dressed themselves up as women.
Yes,
they dressed up
true.
as couples.
They did do that.
They did do that.
Yeah, they did use
So
voice.
they planted themselves to try and attract the killer. It comes across as too jokey, when it's realistically what it actually is you've got these officers putting themselves in a lot of risk to try and lure this killer in. You can have a little bit of comic relief in these films, but when all the comic relief solely lies on the police force, at what point does it just become a bad police academy movie?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that just didn't work for me. I'm not saying the performances aren't good.
No.
It's a massive tonal shift when you follow on from these pretty
noticeable,
aggressive attacks and killing. And one thing I do quite like that the film shows is how the killings scaled. From having people survive.
Yes.
And I think in particular it's like the last 3 kills where he's gotten a bit confident. I think in this film it's meant to spread over like 4 months, which I know you had an issue with because it doesn't show. The voiceover tells us that time has went by. It's like, well, show us that time has gone by. It's really not clear when watching it.
One of my biggest issues in the whole movie, but I'll talk about that in a sec. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, we can talk about it now if you want.
Again, I think I can appreciate the voiceover. It's narrated by a guy called Vern Stearman, whose voice, I think he lends itself very well to the movie.
Do you think it was very much inspired by Texas Chainsaw's voiceover at the start?
Yes, I do.
It was Sunday, March 3rd, 1946. The beginning of a reign of terror for the people of Texarkana and surrounding areas of Arkansas and Texas.
To an extent, I like voiceover work, and parts of this movie I can appreciate it. My issue is I think it's done in a bit of a clunkily, lazily way. Yeah, to sum it up, my main issue is this film really wants to let you know, right, time is passing by, we still haven't caught him, the townsfolk are scared, shit's kicking off. But instead of telling me that, I want the movie to show me that. And again, I'm very sorry to do this, but just to bring up a brilliant moment in Zodiac, which I think exemplifies this really well. Zodiac's timeline was much loftier than the Phantom Texarkana killings. Zodiac, it went on for years. But there's a 2-year period in Zodiac where there's no killings whatsoever and there's no letters being written to the SFPD. But instead of just jumping 2 years ahead, there's a brilliant sequence where, like, the transatlantic building in San Francisco, I think it's a sped up version, but we see it being erected to reflect time passing by. And what a fantastic visual way of telling us, right, 2 years have passed.
Yeah.
And we still haven't got this guy. I would have loved Town That Dreaded Sundown to do, not exactly that, but you know what I mean? Like something else. Show me that time is passing by. Show me that the townsfolk are scared. Show me that the police are getting frustrated. But instead we have the voice of Vern Stearman telling us that. And, again, sometimes it works, other times I really wanted to see more. Yeah,
because like I said, it doesn't really give us a good impression of how the townsfolk are dealing with it. We just suddenly, like, the police are looking for him, then suddenly it's, oh, time has gone by. Yes. We have one scene where we have a bunch of characters in a restaurant and we see the boots that the killer wears just walking behind them in a close-up. Because they're having a discussion about it could be anybody. I wanted more of that, more fear within the town.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Over this stretch of time.
Yeah.
But one thing I think that this film does incredibly well, it is the killer.
Yeah.
And the attacks. Bud he's got an incredible physicality to him. I said the breathing, the wide eyes. Those last 2 attacks, so it's another couple initially. And what this scene does incredibly well is it constantly frames it, especially with the woman, that it's going to be something sexual. And it made me really uncomfortable. Because you got the partner who's he's been beaten to this point, so he's kind of like half conscious. She's ran away and he tracks her down, picks her up, takes her away. And just the way it's framed, even like he ties her to a tree,
Yeah.
sees that her husband or partner is getting back up again. He pulls the gun out, but it's aimed entirely at his like crotch level, so the gun becomes almost phallic. And even the way he frames a lot of the time her tied against the tree, we can't see him. But the film never goes there. And I think that has to be praised for making us think it's going to go one way and then just goes completely off the rails, completely different way. That's probably the most famous killing in this, because it almost like he can't be bothered just to shoot this guy.
Yeah.
But he does, because he's got something more fun in mind. He takes a trombone, puts a knife to it, and basically plays the trombone into our back with a knife.
Yeah.
That is so unique, but also it's interesting when you look at his attempts before this. Because he's not been caught over this long stretch of time, he's getting more confident.
Yeah.
More creative.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating. But that scene, I really, really enjoyed is a hard word to say, because it made me nervous that it was going to make me watch a scene that I'm not going to enjoy.
Well, I think the film...
But the fact that it's suddenly like, oh no, it's trombone knife. I'm like, okay, that's okay. I can watch that.
I think the film also sets you up to expect it, because the first attack, the policeman asked the doctor, was she assaulted? And he says, no, we didn't find evidence of that, but he did very aggressively bite her in certain areas. So I think the film is letting you know that is a constant threat.
Because of
this could happen. But I totally agree with you. That's the third attack sequence, I think.
Yeah,
right?
it's kills 3 and 4.
And that, when I was saying earlier that there were moments in the movie where I was just that I think that's one of them. From beginning to end, that whole sequence is just really uncomfortable. It's very well done. We're literally just voyeurs, essentially, watching this man attack this young man and woman. And there's the scene before he ties her to the tree where she tries to make a break of it, and he goes after her and he grabs her, and she's screaming and she's kicking, and the survival instincts kick in, and it looks brutal. Like, it looks like she's really going for it. But I know Bud Davis did go on to become a stuntman.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he was, maybe giving points and stuff like that, telling her to really, really go for it.
So I really enjoyed his performance in this.
It is very good. Like, I know what you mean about the physicality, because the guy's got a bag over his head throughout the entire film. It's hard in a way to, come across as particularly threatening, I guess, when you don't have any dialogue, even. You're just a presence. You're just a shape. Michael Myers. Michael Myers with a pillowcase or whatever it is. But yeah, the aggressive breathing, and it's almost feral. Like he's getting himself worked up, and it's building and it's building and it's building until finally there's the release of the kill. And that sequence I do think is standout. It's very good. Real life did not play out like that, which is something I've come to learn for all of these attacks, bar one of them. For the most part, these attacks are very heavily fictionalized for the movie. Yeah. But it's still done well.
So, the last attack then.
Yeah.
The one which it seems to be played out pretty accurate. That is the couple
it seems,
at home.
Yeah, very accurate.
He shoots the husband in the back of the head, like, a couple of times. To be honest, I love the aggression. This shows that he's gotten so confident at this point. Now he's not doing it on the outskirts of town where there's no one around. He's doing it just in someone's home. And the way he so aggressively breaks through the door, tears it down, and the camera just like zooms in on him. He looks terrified.
Yeah.
And shoots her in the cheek because she's trying to ring the police. That happened in real life.
This woman was shot in the face. She
survived.
Bullet to the cheek. I think I'm right in saying this. Sorry, this is a bit gory, but I think the bullet was lodged like under her tongue or something. I don't think there was an exit wound, so the bullet was still in her face, and she escaped.
Yeah, got to a neighbour.
She crawled out of that house. Probably had to go past her husband's corpse to get to safety.
Yeah, and that's how it plays out in the film. And that it's one of those ones where, other than like trombone knife, it feels like, oh, this just wouldn't happen. But it did.
But it did. Trombone knife. but it did happen, and it did. It
just shows like, oh, I can get away with more. But he left a witness, and then in the movie he kind of disappears after that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the acting in this film is not great.
No, no,
it really isn't. I do like the deputy and the Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
But low budget film. You're not hiring big stars.
No.
They kind of get it done. I saw it described as acting in a historical reenactment.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it plays out. But
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't distracting for me.
No, because I think overall, the location shoot, I think, works really, really well. Like, they make very good use of the environment, of the landscape. It feels hot, it feels sweaty.
Yeah. Although weirdly, it was released like Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve, yeah. But, you know, even just seeing, like, the 1940s cars and things like that, that's done very well. And I was immersed in the world of the film. Don't get me wrong. Like, bad acting aside, I think the bad acting would have become more of an issue had, you know, we spent more time with these characters.
Yeah.
Like, if they were more of a
So
main
it's almost
character.
a reprieve that we don't have a main character or a final girl to follow.
Yeah, we don't have any of that.
While filming, they had no idea what the end of this film was going to be.
That baffles me.
I think that the actor who played the deputy, do you have his name?
Andrew Prime.
I think he came up with, you know, he helped write the ending. I think the way they approached it was, well, the real story has no ending. There was no police confrontation with the killer. Like, well, what do we do? And they just had to do something fictional. And it's almost at the point they're giving up, and they just kind of come across his car, and they trace him to, like, train yard, and they just see him perched, like he's, like, getting ready for something. What is interesting about that one is, it looks like he's getting ready to go in for an attack.
Yeah.
It's during the day.
Yeah.
So, even though he left a witness last time, he was bold enough to go into someone's home. Now he's bold enough to attack someone in daylight.
Yeah.
Which I find really interesting. I actually think that was a pretty good move to do it. And this whole final sequence, like, it's a little bit of a shootout. They end up with a train in between them, so they're trying to shoot him between the train, with, like, the gaps in the train. And it's in slow motion. You can see a cameraman on the back at one point.
You can clearly see.
You clearly see the... Oh, I think, by the looks of it, he was the one that was filming Bud.
Yeah.
On the other side.
You can see him.
But that whole sequence I really like. At one point, they clip him in the leg, and he's kind of flings himself. By the time the train's gone, he's gone. They've got the sniffer dogs. They're tracing him into, like, a bog, which I think some of that was footage from the director's previous film.
But probably.
That whole last sequence, I really like that. I like this. Is shot really well. It needed an ending where the killer still gets away. So that we needed a little something. Like a moment where the killer gets a bit too close to the sun, a reason for him to stop.
Icarus.
Essentially, yeah, it's his Icarus moment. But then going into, like, the actual final scene of the movie, the final shot, which I think is perfect. And it's so simple. It's set in the 70s. You've got queue people outside a theatre showing Town That Dreaded, Sundown.
Yeah.
And we just see a bunch of feet walking towards it, and you see those boots. That is incredible to me because, let's be real, that could have happened.
Yeah.
Like, there's a good chance he was still alive if he didn't get arrested for something else or, you know, passed away for other means. There is a good chance that the killer did go see his own movie.
He could have lived long enough to see it.
And you've got all those people who just don't know. That is fascinating to me. And to think about, I mean, that was a great way to end the movie. You could have ended it just with, you escaped the bog, was never found, and I'd be like, all right, fine. It's that final moment outside the theatre. I'm like, yes.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We'd like to shout out our groovy members. We appreciate everything you do for this channel and helping us grow. You guys are awesome.
I'd never seen this movie prior to watching it for this, but I knew of that ending. I'd heard it.
I didn't know that.
I'd heard it being spoken about. I think I'd see, maybe there was like a ranking of, like, famous horror endings or something like that, but I was aware of it, and as soon as I saw the queue going into the cinema, I was like, I've seen this. I hadn't seen the film, but I was aware of that ending and how, you know, well regarded and imaginative it was. It's meta, a movie that references itself.
Because I know at different times when you look at the movie theatre throughout the film, you can see posters for the directors of the film. I would watch this again to be up. I was like, issues aside, I actually think it's quite a fun ride, and I think it does deserve to be talked about more for the clear, even if it is just the influences on the film Zodiac or the bag head for
Zodiac,
the sack head for
it does deserve
Jason. Yeah, there's clear inspirations there, and just that relation with real life. So the town were not happy with this film.
No.
I believe the Yeah, they said that it was entirely fictional. A lot of people weren't happy with how the killings were depicted.
Yeah.
I believe the director gets sued by somebody.
By family members of the victims, I think, tried to sue. They were not happy with Pierce, the director, specifically. And I think it was also something to do with the tagline. The tagline referenced that, he's still out there, he's still haunting Texarkana, and they were like, well, that's damaging to tourism.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were not very happy.
However, attitudes have changed towards the film.
Yes.
And from 2003 onwards, every Halloween, sponsored by Texarkana's Department of Parks and Recreations, play the movie.
Yeah.
Drive-in as part of the Halloween season. They've completely embraced it. Obviously, by then, enough time has passed that, because when this movie came out, there would still be people alive that would remember the events. By the year 2000, it's kind of free game, and now the town can, especially with the boom in true crime content, they've kind of got the double whammy. They've got the true crime element that people want to come and explore, and the movie regarding it. So I think that's why the film has started to come back. Its home releases have all kind of ebbed and flowed, disappeared. I think the last one was Scream Factory did a remaster of it 10 years ago, but it wasn't until recently I managed to get a decent version of the film to watch. It's not on any streaming services, so it's if you get a chance to watch the movie, watch it, because you don't know when you're going to get another chance.
That's true. I also was very curious when I was watching it, because I wasn't sure where this fell in terms of timeline, in terms of other movies based on real life serial killers. There are many. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the same year as this, we had Helter Skelter, Manson family movie. We had In Cold Blood in 1967, Boston Strangler in 1968, Badlands in 1973, 10 Rillington Place in 1971. There were a lot of movies inspired by serial killers.
Basically, real life gives horror enough storylines.
Totally. I just want to give a shout out to Ralph McQuarrie, who designed the poster art for this movie. We both fell in love with this.
This poster is incredible. I want this poster.
And it turns out our guy Ralph, he went on to do the posters for Star Wars, for Back to the Future, for Close Encounters of the First Kind, and it was his concept art for Star Wars that helped convince 20th Century Fox to fund it.
To be honest, this might be one of my favourite of his posters. Just the colours, the details.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. It looks great. I think it's what helped attract. I think initially when I saw it, I thought it was a Blu-ray re-release one.
A
new poster. It's oh no, that's the poster.
The OG. Yeah.
God, I miss cool film posters.
Same.
Yeah. Do you have anything more on this one?
I don't really. I hope I haven't come across that I've been shitting on this. As I say, I'm aware that comparing it to a movie made many years later with a different budget is a bit unfair. I did like this. I can see what they were trying to go for. And there are parts of it that I do like, I think stand out. But overall, yeah, I don't know. I would absolutely watch this again, and I think I would recommend it.
I do want to watch the sequel.
Well, it's made me curious about the real life murder.
Yeah, which we didn't realize we actually knew from BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Yeah, we
did know about the killings.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Have you seen this movie?
Yeah.
Does anyone have a physical copy of it? 'Cause I really want a Blu-ray of it.
Who's your favourite serial killer?
What's your favourite horror movie based on real events?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That could get some interesting answers. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next week.